Good evening, I'm John Carter. Welcome to Poland Daily. The United Nations Summit on Climate began in Katowice, during which the attendees are set to execute the Paris Treaty. The countries signed the accord, committed to try and sustain global warming at a level of 2 degrees Celsius above the average temperature from before the Industrial Revolution. Over 20,000 guests from all over the world came to the event, opened by Polish President Andrzej Duda.
According to the concept promoted by Poland, a responsible climate policy is built on the solid foundation of a balanced relationship between nature and technology, while recognizing human dignity as a superior value. We, as Poland, want to point out that while on one hand managing natural resources cannot be contrary with the rules of wildlife preservation, it certainly cannot be damaging to the population.
Z drugiej zaś strony nie może powodować szkody dla społeczności.
Climate change is the most important issue we face. It affects all our plans for sustainable development and a safe, secure and prosperous world. So it's hard to comprehend why we are collectively still moving too slowly and even sometimes moving in the wrong direction. The IPCC's special report tells us that we still have time to limit temperature rise, but that time is running out.
The people have spoken. Leaders of the world, you must lead. The continuation of our civilizations and the natural world upon which we depend is in your hands.
France is struggling with some of the most serious social unrest seen in years. The protests organised by the Yellow Vests movement against the raised fuel prices are becoming stronger and more violent by the day. The French President Emmanuel Macron and the government of Edouard Philippe have tried to reach an agreement with the protesters, but to no avail thus far.
Paris city officials estimate the damage of city property to be millions of euro. Due to acts of vandalism during the so-called Yellow Jackets' Dark Saturday, the famous triumphal arch of the star was damaged, hundreds of cars burned and countless store windows and expositions were smashed. Today is our third day of striking. We're now protesting against Articles 80 and 29 of the new Social Security Financing Bill. These regulations will make it impossible for us to work. They will hit our finances and destroy our businesses. We will be forced to fire people, that's for sure. Most of the members of parliament grew up with silver spoons. They have no idea what is going on in our neighborhoods. As recently as yesterday, the French government talked about the possibility of introducing a state of emergency in the country, which would lead to even more violence between the police and the protesters. In the end, the government decided to use dialogue instead. Yesterday, it seemed as if the French government was willing to use force against the Yellow Jackets. However, it did not happen. Following the crisis staff meeting, the government announced that it will sit down with the protesters to talk. Leaders of the Yellow Jackets movement are not willing to drop their demands. The next big demonstration is planned for next Saturday. We hope that the government suspends this law, so we could talk about it together and come up with a solution that would satisfy everyone. For now, no one is satisfied. After the violent demonstrations on the streets of Paris and other larger cities, there was a division between the Yellow Jacket protesters. Some of them don't want to be associated with acts of vandalism committed by the more radical protesters.
The Parliamentary Rulebook Commission has accepted Stanisław Gawłowski's declaration in which the MP renounced his parliamentary immunity. This opens the door for further charges to be made by the prosecution. Today, the prosecution pressed charges over the abuse of power by Sławomir Neumann, head of the civic platform Parliamentary Club.
The statements concerning the renouncing of the immunities of Sławomir Neumann, Andrzej Halicki and Stanisław Gawłowski were submitted correctly. The schedule of the parliament session set to take place on Wednesday is still unknown, yet it seems very likely that this issue might be voted on. In May of this year, MPs Halicki and Neumann lit flares during the Freedom March in Warsaw. The police fined the pair, therefore they renounced their immunities voluntarily. Meanwhile, Stanisław Gawłowski heard 5 5 charges in May, 3 of them were related to corruption. After spending 3 months in jail, he left on bail. The prosecution is set to press 2 additional charges, one corruption-related, while the other is related to money laundering. Access to an expertise is just a matter of having knowledge or not. Such expertise wouldn't complicate the procedures of the parliament, which are coming to an end now. It wouldn't slow anything down. It would only give us knowledge about the charges made by the prosecution. The prosecution hides this knowledge because it doesn't aid the prosecutions, but Gawłowski's case. It's truly scandalous. It's not seeking the truth, it's a witch hunt.
There
are 2 new charges concerning financial benefits fraud. We can't talk about the details, but since there are 2 new charges, the Commission and the Parliament need to investigate them. Mr. Gawłowski initially claimed that he didn't receive any documents, and when we proved to him that there were 3 attempts to give the documents, he backed down from his previous statement. Then, just before the vote, when the Commission recommended taking legal actions against him, he gave a statement which further prolonged all the procedures. We are witnessing typical methods that serve only one purpose: to prolong the procedures. The head of the Civic Platform Parliamentary Club, Sławomir Neumann, heard an abusive power charge today. The charge is linked to a case while Neumann was the Deputy Prime Minister of Health. According to the prosecution, the Civic Platform MP was to convince the then director of the Mazovian branch of the National Health Fund to sign an unfavorable contract with a private Warsaw practice, Sense Clinic. Under the scheme, the clinic would unlawfully collect fees for treatment, which in reality was funded by the National Health Service. Sławomir Neumann pleads not guilty.
A new nationalist party, Vox, has sent shockwaves through the Spanish political establishment after yesterday's success in the Andalusian regional election, where the party surprisingly won 11% of the vote. The result means that it will be the first right-wing populist party in modern Spanish history to win seats in a regional assembly. Andalusia, and in particular the city of Algeciras, have taken the brunt of the near 50,000 illegal migrants who have arrived in Spain so far this year.
Vox will receive 12 seats in the regional assembly and will be able to act as a kingmaker. The socialists have been ruling in Andalusia since Spain became a democracy following General Franco's death in 1975. Their poor result will make a coalition government possible between Vox and the 2 liberal and conservative parties, Ciudadanos and Partido Popular. The party leader, Santiago Abascal, argues that the result will pave the way for future electoral successes. Andalusians once again have made history like many times in the past. They have shaken off 36 years of socialist regimes, paving the way for the rest of the Spanish people by saying that it is possible and even easier to do the same in the rest of the country. Regional candidates claim that the victory is the start of a new Reconquista. It was about time for a change. We are the ones that are going to promote changes, improvement and Reconquista.
La Reconquista.
Many voters believe that the result follows a European trend also seen in France and Italy. It's a bit like the symptom Europe is experiencing. It's the same thing that happened in France, for example, where people from left wing are moving to far right, and it's a symptom that will keep increasing. The good result is particularly surprising, as Andalusia has traditionally been a region dominated by the left. If they grew that much in Andalusia, they might get several seats here in Madrid or other parts of Spain, where the right wing and far right have always been strong. The party's success in Andalusia means that chances are high that the party will also manage to win a number of seats in the European Parliament in the European elections next spring.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather, and then join me after that for Poland Daily Business.